Now let's talk about how to stand when you're going to shoot an arrow. Notice that Ryan is wearing the appropriate safety equipment, the arm guard and the finger tab, now that he has a bow in his hands. First of all, notice how Ryan is standing. His feet are facing toward you, and they are about shoulder width apart. You can have them a little closer together or a little farther apart if you want to, but for the most part, it's good that they stay right under your shoulders, right under your hips. As we move up, we notice that Ryan's hips are placed right over his feet. This gives him good solid balance, so he knows exactly where his body is centered. Notice that as I'm telling you about how Ryan stands, I'm touching him when I do so, and adjusting him as need be. I teach by Gumby method because that's how I was taught, and it helped me learn archery very well and very quickly. If you are uncomfortable with me touching you, please let me know that, and I will coach you from a distance in a slightly different way. Now that we've talked about Ryan's hips being where they need to be, let's move up to his torso and his shoulders. His shoulders are right over his feet in a big solid line all the way down. Your mother always told you good posture was important, and in archery it is. Notice also that Ryan's shoulders are down and his neck is long and tall and he's holding his head up high. This is very important too, as it will control how your arrow moves when you finally do pull back the bow. Let's talk about now how to hold the bow. If you look at Ryan's hand here, notice that he's not gripping the bow with a firm power grip, that his fingers are very loose and light and I can wiggle them all I want. Notice also that he has about a 45-degree angle between his hand and the bow and down his knuckles. This is very important as it takes the force when you pull on the bow and sends it straight back through the bones of your arm to your shoulder. It goes right up your ulna and into your humerus. This is good technique for holding the bow as it allows you to shoot more times during a competition with better strength. Remember, it's important to keep your fingers limp down here. I should be able to walk up to you and wiggle them like a dead fish anytime I want. Now let's talk about how to grip the string. You want to grip the string with 3 fingers only, and your pinky and thumb need to stay out of the way. This is the part of the string you'll be gripping right here, with the knock point between your middle and your index finger. So go ahead and grip the string for me, Ryan. Notice that Ryan is wearing a finger tab when he grips the string. This is called a spacer. You may or may not have one of these on your finger tab, but it goes right over the knock point. He's gripping it in the first joint of his fingers. You can grip it in the second joint if you want to, but the first joint is generally better. Notice that Ryan is simply holding the string gently in his hand. He's not grabbing it. This is very important as your shot will go best if your grip on the string is gentle and not tough. Now let's talk about how to nock an arrow. When you nock the arrow, there are 2 little prongs on the nock at the end. You want the string to go between these 2 prongs under the golden knock point bead. So why don't you nock the arrow for me, Ryan? When he does, you'll hear a click. Maybe it's a quiet click. Okay, so now that he has the arrow on the string under the knock bead, I'll say, put your fingers on the string correctly, and he'll put them up just as I showed you how to do it earlier. Notice that he's holding the arrow between his middle and his index finger. That's the appropriate place for it to go. Notice also that he's wearing a finger tab and has only 3 fingers on the string. Let's talk about the arrow where it's placed for a minute. It goes on the arrow rest over here, and the 2 feathers, in this case that are pink, are facing toward you. There's an important reason for this. The other feather is white. It's an odd color, and it needs to face toward the archer at all times. The reason for this is because these 2 feathers are positioned to pass by the bow as they fly toward the target, and this one would get sheared off. So always be careful to look at the arrows, not all of which are aligned correctly at Cornell Archery, to make sure that 2 feathers are facing backward toward the bow and 1 is sticking out toward you. Let's take a close look at the form when pulling back the bow to shoot the arrow. Ryan is standing in a very good position right now, with his spine straight to his hips and his whole body is right over his legs, which are hip width apart. Let's look at what Ryan's muscles are doing when they pull back the bow. Pull back for me, Ryan. Notice how all of Ryan's muscles that are doing the work are his deltoids and trapezius right here. His scapulae are coming together to hold the bow back. He's not using his biceps. Let down for me, sweetie. Notice how my finger goes deep into his back when he lets go. That means he was using the correct muscles to pull up the bow. I will probably come around quite often and put my fingers in your back just to check how you're doing. This is one of the most important parts of the shot, and it needs to be done right. Notice one more thing about Ryan when he pulls back for me. Go ahead and pull back. Notice also that Ryan's biceps are very weak here. It's not because Ryan has weak biceps. I know he's strong. It's because he's not using them to hold the arrow back. And that allows the rest of his back to open up and be the powerful force. Let down. Now let's look at what Ryan's arms and elbows are doing from the front so it's a little easier to see. When Ryan pulls back, go ahead and pull back for me, Ryan. Notice that his elbow is up high close to his ear and that his shoulder and neck have a nice big gap between them. Notice also that his bow arm is very straight and that this shoulder is far away from his face as well. Go ahead and let down. This indicates that Ryan has a very strong line of power going from this elbow all the way to his hand, and that there's no interruptions in the middle to bother his shot. Now pull back for me again, Ryan, so they can see one more thing. Notice where Ryan's hand is on his face. Ryan's hand is right by his chin, leading in a nice straight line back to his elbow. His wrist is very relaxed. Go ahead and let down. This will be a very important part of the release when we talk about that later. Make sure that you're not bending your wrist out or in when you're holding it up by your face. Now we're going to look at what it looks like from the front of the shot to show you how much a line is important in the T posture for a good shot. When Ryan pulls back for me, go ahead and pull back. If you look at Ryan's body, you'll notice that he has a very nice straight line all the way through. His elbow is in line with his wrist, which is in line with his head, which is in line with his other wrist. That's very important, and all of it's in line with his waist. Go ahead and let down. Let's look at this from the other way too, so it's easy to see again. Go ahead and pull back for me, Ryan. Even from the other way, it looks just as good. There's a straight line going all the way through his body. He looks like a T. This is the best way to shoot. Go ahead and let down. Now we're going to talk about the release. The release is very important because it truly is that, a release. It is not a forced or a plucked motion at all. All you're going to do when you pull the bow up is let the string slip through your fingers. The only thing you're changing is how tight you're gripping the string. There's no special motion to this at all. So we're going to watch my fingers now as they simply release and go backward. They're going to go back and touch my shoulder. You don't have to touch your shoulder necessarily, but I teach beginners to do this because it helps make sure that the line goes straight across your face and doesn't go out or toward the rest of your body. So this is what I would like the release to look like. You're going to come up to your chin. And then once you are at your chin, you're just going to let your fingers gently slip through and touch your shoulder. Let's see that one more time. It's very important once you have actually fired the arrow to keep your bow arm up and straight and stand still and finish the shot. Do not move your body until you hear the arrow smack the target, no matter how far away the target is. If you do, you may negatively affect the flight of the arrow. So hold still until you know the arrow is gone, and then you can drop your bow arm and relax. Now we're going to put the entire shot together and show you from start to finish what shooting an arrow looks like. You might notice there's a little red string on my finger. That's the finger sling I was talking about earlier. If you are wearing one of these, it probably means that you've mastered the hand grip on the bow and that only the tension from the string is keeping the bow in your hand. That's a bit of an advanced thing, so we'll get to that a little later, but I just wanted you to notice that it's there. If you see it on your peers, you can ask them about it. Okay, here we go, the completed shot from start to finish. First, start with your body standing in the stance I taught you to stand in, with your feet right below your waist, kind of about hip width apart, strong and sturdy and tall. Your spine straight above it, your abs tall and strong, and your back up and your head up. Now, look the direction that you want the arrow to go. Your head's going to stay facing this way the entire time. Make sure that your bow hand is adjusted before you lift the bow. Once you pull the bow up, you don't want to be messing with your hand. If you get it up and it's not where you want it, let down and readjust it. Don't move it while it's in the air. Once you get everything where you want it to be, look down at the arrow for a moment. Sometimes it may fall off the arrow rest and go to the side. If it's doing that, that's probably because you're gripping it too tightly. Open up your index and your middle finger and it will sit there much more comfortably. Now, when you're ready, pull the bow up. Raise your entire body as one fluid motion, being sure to keep your elbow high in the back and your back shoulder away from your neck. Scrunched up like this is the wrong way to shoot. Notice the arrow even fell off the breast when I did that. Keep your body strong, tall, open, and straight. When you're ready, let your fingers slip through the string and touch your shoulder. Finish the shot. Keep your arm up until you hear the arrow smack the target.